Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the temple for Shabbat morning services. We're so glad to have you join us by YouTube or Facebook Live. If you're looking for the prayer book to be able to follow along with us, we're reading from Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat, the prayer book of Reform Judaism, and you can find a digital copy, a flip book, in the description of our YouTube channel. We're happy to have you join us, and we welcome you with our opening song, Hinei Ma Tov, which can be found on page 70.
שבת עמים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת עמים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יה לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. יה לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת עמים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת עמים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת עמים גם יחד.
We continue with a prayer for our country, which can be found at the bottom of page 258. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who've died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country sound of body and spirit. Amen. We continue now on page 74 with the words of Matov. Page 77. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins and arteries and vital organs, into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware. We would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of all our health and our strength. Baruch atah Adonai rofech kol basar umafli lasot. We turn now to our call to worship the Baruch Hu on page 108. In the beginning, even then. A new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order, then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have to cast light into the dark waters and draw our justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer Hamerot. Please join us in the Shema on page 114.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you on this day shall be upon your heart, shall be upon your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you will speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates, and upon your gates. And you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when, to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. Then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. We continue with the Mi Chamocha, our song of redemption, on page 122.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehillah tosefet
rise now in our hearts or from our seats for the Tefillah, our standing prayer, page 124. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Koneh Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo Ba'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Our fathers and mothers prayed, each through their own experience of God, each through their own visions, which we have come to share. Abraham, with the fervor of justice, pleaded the cause of cities. Sarah, in the pain of waiting, dared to hope for new life. Isaac, meditating alone in the field, lifted his eyes to find love. Rebekah asked for the ability to discern God's call. Jacob climbed the rungs of his night into the heavens, seeking destiny. Leah dreamed of love, and Rachel sought harmony. We, as they, seek God's presence. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. You are forever mighty, Adonai. You give life to all. You rain dew upon us. You sustain life through love, giving life to all. Through great compassion, supporting the fallen, healing the sick, freeing the captive, keeping faith with those who sleep in the dust. Who is like you, source of mighty acts, who resembles you, a sovereign who takes and gives life, causing deliverance to spring up and giving faithfully life to all. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives life to all. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye Hakol.
נקדש את שמחה בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו במשמרם, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 לאדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו, אדיר, אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישביענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
To all generations, we will declare your greatness, and for all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please join us in Yismechu, page 132.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
מקדש שבי שבת, כולם ישביעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
והשביעי רצית בו וקידשת שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת
שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה וראשית שבת. זכר למעשה וראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
We turn now to our prayer for peace, which can be found on page 140. Grant peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and all your people Israel. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together, through the light of your presence. Truly, through the light of your presence, Adonai, our God, you gave us the Torah of life, the love of kindness, justice, blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May you see fit to bless your people Israel at all times, at every hour, with your peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvorech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha, chen ha'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol yirei shamecha. Sim shalom, sim shalom.
Please take a moment now for silent prayer. We turn now to page 253 for the words of Misha Barach, our sorely needed prayer for healing. May these words inspire us to be healers ourselves, to bring about a world of justice and wholeness and peace. And may they provide comfort for all those in need of healing from this pandemic, from losses they've received. For those who are in nursing homes or hospitals, receiving care from loved ones and the medical professionals who care for us all. We ask God's blessing upon us, upon all of us, and upon our world. With these words. We continue now with the service for the reading of the Torah, which can be found on page 244. Please join me on page 248 for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Our God is one, Adonai is great, holy is God's name.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Lecha Adonai Hagidula v'hagivura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. Ki cho b'shamayim u'va'aretz, ki cho b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Lecha Adonai ha'mamlacha v'hamidnaseh lechol erosh.
This week's Torah portion is Tazria Metzora. You can follow along with us. We're in Leviticus chapter 12. We'll be reading the entire chapter, verses 1 through 8. Tazria is my bar mitzvah portion, and as I approach my fifth lap around bar mitzvah, let me mention that her much maligned character as being the slimy and oozy portion in the Torah is overstated, and I'm a big fan. So we begin with the blessing, which you can find on page 250. Please join me in the blessing for the reading of the Torah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch atah Adonai le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Tazria is an open door to a women's world hidden here in the Torah. What we find beyond that doorway is at times not pretty and at times not so fair. But still in all, it is a passageway towards the world of women and a recognition of the life-giving role they play within the Jewish community then and now. This week's double portion, Tazria Metzora, falls in the center of what is called the heart of the Torah, which means that we have journeyed into the book of Leviticus, the middle book of the 5 books of the Torah, and we have arrived now, if you're counting chapters, to the very center of that book, the heart of the Torah. The Torah begins with the story of creation and the birth of all life on earth. It ends with the death of Moses within the site of the Promised Land. And here in Tazria, the beating heart of the Torah, we stand on that middle ground between life and death. The first parts of Tazria present the laws of ritual purification to be undertaken when a child is born. The last parts of Tazria present the laws of ritual purification for those afflicted with a dreaded and deadly plague. Tazria stands at the doorway between life and death, beginning with the passageway of childbirth when, particularly in the ancient world, so much hope and dread lay hanging in the balance. The book of Leviticus is called Torah HaLevi'im, the Torah of the Levites, meaning that it is served largely as an instruction manual for the priests and the Levites on how to conduct the sacrifices and sacred service, which were the religious ceremonies of our ancient past. The Torah itself is called Torah Chaim, the Torah of life, because of the reference to the Psalms, which says, "It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it." The opening sections of this week's portion, Tazria, might well be called Torah Nashim, the Torah of women, for in it we find one of those rare moments in the Torah where the topic of the Torah is women, and the purpose of the Torah is women in childbirth, and the ritual of the Torah is prescribed, which is one that can be exclusively offered by a woman's hands. Tazria begins with the beginning of us all. And so, let us begin. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל לאמור, אישה כי תזריע וילדה, זכר וטומאה, 7 ימים כימי נידת דותה תטמא, וביום השמיני ימול בשר עורלתו, ו30 יום ו3 ימים תשב בדמי טהרה, וכל קודש לא תיגע, ואל המקדש לא תבוא, עד מלאת ימי טהרה. ואם נקבה תלד וטומאה, 7 בנידת תה, ו60 יום ו6 ימים תשב על דמי טהרה. ובמלאת ימי טהרה לבן או לבת, תביא כבש בן שנתו לעולה, ובן יונה או תור לחטאת, אל פתח אוהל מועד, אל הכהן, והקריבו לפני ארונה, וכיפר עליה בטהרה, ממקור דמיה. זאת תורת היולדת לזכר ולנקבה, אם לא תמצא דעתה, ולקחה 2 תורעים ו2 בני יונה, אחד לעולה ואחד לחטאת, וכיפר עליה הכהן בטהרה. And God spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people and say unto them, When a woman at childbirth bears a male, she shall be unclean 7 days. She shall be unclean as in the time of her cycle. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall remain in a state of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch a holy thing, nor enter the holy sanctuary until her period of purification is completed. She bears a female, she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as during her menstruation, and she shall remain in the state of blood purification for 66 days. On the completion of her period of purification for either a son or a daughter, she shall bring to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting a lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, and a pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. The priest shall offer it before God and make expiation on her behalf. She shall then be clean from her flow of blood. Such are the rituals concerning her who bears a child, male or female. And if her means should not suffice for a sheep, she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, one for the burnt offering and one for the sin offering. And the priest shall make expiation on her behalf, and she shall be clean. All of these complex rites and rituals of seclusion and sacrifice required of a woman after childbirth is somewhat surprising, considering that men were expected to make no similar religious rituals or sacrifices upon founding a family. A man is obligated to circumcise his son, but when it came time to sacrifice at the Holy Tabernacle on behalf of a son or a daughter, these could only be brought by the hands of a woman. For some of the insights within this text, you need to read between the lines. A woman after childbirth remains in seclusion, and it states specifically that she must take particular care not to touch a holy thing, nor should she come to the sanctuary, which means that were she not in seclusion because of the birth of a child, a woman might regularly come in contact with holy vessels or come into the holy place of the tabernacle. Some of these lessons are written large upon the page. Men represented the family, bringing sacrifices for the festivals during the year and at times of the census, which counted the number of men at arms and the leaders of each clan or household. But the only ones involved or even present when an offering was made after the birth of a child were the woman and a priest. It is she who must bring the offerings to the priest, and it is she who must instruct him how to sacrifice them. That last point being extremely well hidden in the text, were it not for the great biblical commentator Rashi, who famously trained his daughters to become great Torah scholars of the generation after his own. Rashi notices that the text says, "And the priest shall offer it." Two offerings have been mentioned, a lamb and a bird, but it states here, "And he shall offer it, and so make atonement for her." So only one of the offerings would be sacrificed. But which one? The answer is the one that the woman might choose. And finally, Tazria states specifically that a woman herself was to bring the lamb or the dove directly to the tent of meeting. And that means that the mother herself looked after these birds as well as the sheep until the moment when she handed them over to the priest, which means that her husband was not even invited along for the ride. There was a sacrifice that needed to be offered, and through the religious rites and described in the Torah usually are viewed as the exclusive domain of men, nevertheless this essential ritual of childbirth could only come from the hands of a woman. And in describing this ritual, there are hints of a much larger role that women played in the religious life of our biblical ancestors, our mothers and our fathers. That's not everything, I know. And there are layers of patriarchy and exclusion still within this text, and beyond it as well, all of which place women in what can only be seen as a second-class status in biblical society. But Tazria is something, and in the context of the biblical interpretation, a door opens here to a greater passageway for a more equality yet to come. There's a prayer in our Shabbat prayer book. You can find it on page 69. It reads, "Either you will go through this door, or you will not go through. If you go through, there is always the risk of remembering your name. Things look at you doubly, and you must look back and let them happen. If you do not go through, it is possible to live worthily, to maintain your attitudes, to hold your position, to die bravely. But much will blind you, much will evade you, and at what cost, who knows? The door itself makes no promises. It is only a door." Tazria is an open door to a woman's world here in the Torah. Within it can be found a passageway from the world of our ancestors to a more egalitarian world, recognizing the spiritual gifts and obligations of all of its members and all the members of our community. It is up to us to open the door. Shabbat Shalom. Please join me in the blessing after the reading of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Al pi Adonai biyad Moshe, biyad Moshe. Al pi Adonai biyad Moshe, biyad Moshe. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael.
We continue now with the adoration, the Aleinu, which can be found on page 283. Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto you, who spreads out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else.
V'anachnu torim
We turn now to page 288. When I die, give what is left of me away to children and old men who wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I have known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. This week in our congregation, we remember particularly the names of John A. Daniello, Shirley Tanchester Reese, Shelley Nafusi Titlips, Goodman Tasman, Pauline Lieberman, Libby Pierce, Goldie Jean Opper, Lily Harris Steinhardt, Carol Boguslavsky, Jim Gould, Jean S. Levine, Bernice Levis, Miriam Weinstein, Joel Sokoloff, Bertie Sales, Ressie Voss, Helen Dinkelspiel, Felix Weingarten, Flora Steinfeld, Rose Snyder Hummel, Bess Stiebel, Richard Uslander, Carl N. Buzzy Victor Jr., Michael H. Brody, Irma Bloom, M. Carl Fink Sr., Richard Harvey, David L. Prussian, Rebecca Block, Boris Kite, Ada Lerner Greenspan, Gladys Meyer, and two who died in recent days, Isaac Yurevich and Erwin Moss. Zichronam livracha. May their memories live on in our hearts for blessing always, as we rise and say these words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemeh Rabba, balma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agalat v'izman kari v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ulmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudisha b'richu, le'lo min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata, Damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shloma rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comforting all who are bereaved, as we say together, amen. Our closing song is Oseh Shalom. Yes? We can follow along. It's the last three lines of Kaddish on page 294.
Oseh Shalom b'imromah, Say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol
words of the sages of our ancient past. May you live to see your world fulfilled. May your destiny be for worlds to come. And may you trust in the generations past and yet to be. May your heart be filled with intuition, and your words be rich in understanding. May songs of praise ever be upon your tongue, and your vision clarify a straight path before you. May your eyes shine with the light of Torah, and your face reflect the brightness of the heavens. May your lips ever speak wisdom, and your fulfillment be in righteousness. And even as you have yearned for these words to be heard for generations to come, may they echo within us from the Ancient One of Holiness. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and keep you from harm. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted unto you and all of us, and grant us the blessing of peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.